Sunday, May 26, 5:17 p.m. And this is Tech Tales 19. So since last report, let's see, a few interesting things to report on. Friday evening, May 24th, 7:28 p.m. to 9:13 p.m., a client that we had been trying to connect for probably weeks, that we intended to connect after hours so that she could have me help with her home office computer. She has a day job with a client of mine. She and her husband have a business that they run out of home, and she uses a Windows 10 computer, a computer that's been upgraded to Windows 10 and using some old software products. She'd been having troubles with saving documents in WordPerfect. So I connected remotely to figure out what's going on with that. And what I found is that when you go to save a file, type in a file name, click on the save button, there is no response to clicking on the save button. No error message. The dialog window for the Save As window stays right there. You can see the Save button depress so that it looks like it got clicked on, but nothing else happens. And the document does not get saved. So we tried a few different ways of going about it. I tested to be sure that the hard drive's okay, in the sense that I just created files from Windows Explorer. That works fine. I tried saving from other programs such as WordPad, and that worked fine. Eventually I got to the point of checking Task Manager, and I found instances of WordPerfect still open in Task Manager even though we had exited from WordPerfect. I ended task on those instances of WordPerfect and then launched the program and was able to save the document. Then exited WordPerfect and found that the task was still open for WordPerfect. So WordPerfect was failing to properly close upon exiting. So then I started considering, okay, why is this? And eventually I got to the point of checking in the Help About section to see what version of WordPerfect this is. And it said WordPerfect version 8. And then I went online to see what versions of WordPerfect were current. And I found WordPerfect X8 and WordPerfect X9. Yeah, but this wasn't WordPerfect X8. This was WordPerfect 8. And I had thought that WordPerfect had changed their version numbering scheme some time back. So I was considering how to nail this down better. And I went back to the Help About WordPerfect menu option in her copy of WordPerfect and found a copyright date of 1997. 22 years old. And this is a Windows 10 computer. Now, it had been working fine for quite some time, even after upgrading to Windows 10. I came up with a theory that perhaps a Windows 10 update now has a problem with that, and I explained to her that Microsoft does not test all of the updates against all of the obsolete versions of all of the software products a person might be using. I don't know precisely how much they test against before releasing updates to the general public, but certainly not back that far. Then the next morning, Saturday morning, let's see, when was that? She called back again on, Saturday morning, 7:27 a.m., I have that marked as PM here. Go change that. She called me at 7:27 a.m. and the first thing she said was, "Oops, I just realized how early it is. I'm sorry." I told her that's fine. I've been up for a while. And her voice sounded a little bit panicked. She said she couldn't print. She had finished the project she needed to do the previous night, and now Saturday morning she's unable to print. Well, I imagine she probably tried to print Friday night, but that's irrelevant. So I connected remotely and tried it, and there was no error message when trying to print. And what I did was I went to the printer's applet in the control panel, and there was a number of old printer definitions in there, and I removed them, and then we tried printing, and it worked. And that was a 10-minute call, and my comment to her was, well, I'm glad that was easier than last night, because last night, Friday night, we had an hour and 45 minutes was the length of time that it took us to get to that ending task. Well, now, in fairness, on Friday night, we dealt with some other issues as well after getting the saving issue fixed. Well, let's see, what did we do? We checked to see what the cost was to buy a new edition of WordPerfect, figuring that would be the reliable way to fix this problem that she had of the WordPerfect not exiting properly when she closes it. We cleaned up some desktop icons by removing them. She had a backup drive attached that was out of space when she had tried to copy some pictures to it, and I found that it had an old image file of her hard drive, a couple years old. And she also wanted to know how to insert a picture file into WordPerfect, so we did that. And this being an older version of WordPerfect, it wasn't where I was expecting it to be. So it was on the import menu, but we had to import a file and then choose the picture file that she wanted, which was a JPG file. And then it performed a conversion once we did that. Now, first we tried to just drag the icon that was on her desktop for that picture into WordPerfect, and that gave us a picture of the icon in WordPerfect. Yeah, I think that's about it. Next, on Saturday, 2:12 p.m. to 2:27 p.m., this was working with one of the attorneys, one of the partner attorneys in that office. I don't think I've spoke to you about her before. The name is Susan. Yeah, so this was phone and remote connection support to fix the printer selection while she was connected to her office computer. So I was connected remotely to her computer at home while she was connected from that computer to her office computer, and she was working in a program that was on her office computer trying to print to her home printer. So I fixed that. It has to do with the printer selections for the remote connection, but more specifically, what happened, and we fixed this before, is that Windows 10 on her home computer, probably from a Windows update, had shifted to the mode of having Windows 10 manage the printers instead of allowing me to manage the printers by selecting one as the default printer. So what would happen as she's working on her home computer, Windows doesn't show a default printer in the printer's applet in the control panel. And that's because Windows is managing the printers. Windows is thinking that it knows more than we do about what printer she wants to use as the default printer. And somehow that was not allowing the log me in connection to her office computer to recognize which printer that she would want to print to from the home at the home computer, because log me in, as far as I can tell, is dependent upon one of the printers being identified as the default printer. And if that isn't there, then log me in doesn't know which of those printers to offer for remote printing, because it's only going to offer one printer. You're not going to get a list of all the printers that you might have at home. So an additional fix to this is we deleted the excess printers that were on her home computer, because she had other printers in the past, but currently only has one printer. So when Windows takes over managing the printers, it didn't correctly identify which printer she actually has there. It was offering one of her older printers for use with the log me in connection to her office computer. So that was a 15-minute phone call. And then Saturday, 2:29 p.m. to 2:33 p.m., Phil from the Defined Benefit Plan office. I spoke with him about the 2 laptops that belonged to his daughter. I had worked on them at that point, and I haven't put in a time slip yet for that, so that's why I haven't described to you what happened. So I guess I need to start with describing that. There were these 2 laptops, one referred to as the big laptop, one referred to as the little laptop. Both of them, the DVD drives, were not working. Well, I had this preconceived notion that perhaps it was because she was getting DVDs from a friend in college. She's a college student on the coast. And she was perhaps getting a DVD that the friend had burned in their DVD drive, and that it wasn't working in either of her 2 computers. Well, that can happen when a DVD drive on the computer that creates the DVD has its head a little bit misaligned. I don't know if it's the head or is somehow misaligned to where DVDs created on that computer aren't reliably usable in other computers. And her report was that it wasn't working consistently. And my preconception was wrong, absolutely wrong. These 2 laptops of hers had completely different problems with their DVD drives. The big laptop has a DVD drive built into the laptop. I turned the computer on and immediately tried to press the eject button on the drive to see if it would open. It would not. Got all the way up to Windows. There's no indication that there is a DVD drive. Device Manager has no indication of a DVD drive. The eject button still won't work. So that's interesting. I shut the computer down. I went into CMOS setup and found the line in there called ODD. That's for optical disk drive. Next to that it said none. There is none. That's interesting. So then I'm thinking there could be a problem with the motherboard, the drive circuitry that's responsible for the DVD drive. Could be the DVD drive itself. Could be something to do with Windows 10, because this computer was not originally Windows 10. It was upgraded to it. No, excuse me, that's not correct. That computer, the big computer, is Windows 7. We had tried to upgrade it to Windows 10 when Windows 10 first came out. Phil had done the upgrade himself and called me saying it's broken. The screen won't come on at all after he did the Windows 10 upgrade. So we brought it into my lab, and what I wound up doing is restoring it back to Windows 7. That was a long time ago. I haven't looked at my notes. I'm guessing that I probably got it started into safe mode and used the option within the Windows 10 upgrade to revert back to Windows 7. So then, let's see. I had considered whether there might be a BIOS update or a DVD driver update, and I did go check on that. It turns out it is current in that regard, but that was kind of irrelevant anyway, because in CMOS setup, if it doesn't show up there, then it's not a driver problem. Can't be. There's got to be something hardware related. So I pulled the drive out. That involved turning the computer over, take off an access panel, one screw, and then the drive can be pulled out from the side. And I looked it over a bit, and I noticed the connector on the back of the drive where it plugs into the computer had a lot of movement. That didn't seem right. So I considered we could just replace the drive, because I thought it was probably not very expensive. I went to check on replacement drives for it and found they were quite expensive, over $100, and they wouldn't have the right faceplate. I was going to have to change the faceplate over. And then I got to thinking, well, if the drives have that level of compatibility between them, where one drive model can be shipped with a particular faceplate, but that drive can be used on multiple different computers, I wonder if I have another laptop around here that has a compatible DVD drive. So I did wind up going that route eventually, but I realize I'm skipping a part of it here. Before going to that other DVD drive, I disassembled her DVD drive, took the top off, took a bracket off the back, took the lid off. The circuit board, which is what those connectors were connected to, was hidden from view by the DVD tray. So I inserted a paper clip in that hole in the front of the DVD faceplate. There's a hole on the front of every DVD or CD faceplate. You put a paper clip in there and push. Takes quite a bit of pressure, and it might take a little fussing with aligning the paper clip right. And when you get it on that lever that's in there, you give it a push, pressure, and that'll just pop the tray open. Then you can pull it open the rest of the way. So once I got that open, I could see the circuit board and push around a little bit. It had a lot of movement. Well, there was a screw missing. So I think, well, this might get lucky here. Maybe because of this looseness, it wasn't seated very well, and over time it had just worked itself loose enough or developed some corrosion on the contacts there that it wasn't making good contact anymore. On that point, about the corrosion, once I pulled the DVD drive out, I put it right back in and went in to check the CMOS, because sometimes just unplugging something and plugging it back in will be enough to scrape through any corrosion that's on the contact points. But that didn't solve it. So anyway, I used one of the screws from the case cover, from the DVD cover. I used that to secure the circuit board. That particular screw that I borrowed was near a bracket that I figured that's not going to be a security problem or a securing the top problem. It'll hold together just fine, at least for testing purposes. I have a bunch of screws, but it's going to take a while to find one that particular size and thread pitch. So I reassembled it, put it into the computer, started the computer up, went into CMOS, and it still said there was no optical disk drive. So that's a fail. Now I'm thinking it could be the motherboard, could be the connector on the motherboard for the DVD drive, and it still could be the DVD drive itself. So then I went and looked for the replacement drives and found they were kind of expensive, and came up with the idea about maybe I have a DVD drive around here that has the same connector. So I pulled one DVD drive out of a laptop. No, it's not the same connector. I went to the second laptop, and yes, it was the same connector, but it had a different size faceplate, and it was a little bit lower profile. And I thought, well, that's okay for testing purposes. So I pushed it into the opening on the DVD drive, had to futz around with a little bit gently to get it into that connector. So I got it into the connector, turned the computer over with this DVD drive just loosely hanging there. Well, I put that cover plate on the bottom of the computer to cover up the memory boards and the hard drive. Turned the computer on, went straight into the BIOS setup screen, and found that it was there. It was recognized. So that proves the problem is the DVD drive. Then I went back to considering about ordering a DVD drive, and I think this DVD drive is over $100, and she already has an external DVD drive for the small laptop. We could buy another small DVD drive. They're, what, $20? That would be a better way to go. And what I wound up deciding to do is I went to look at eBay for a used drive. That would be fine. And I found one for under $15. I just ordered it. Now, it has a different faceplate, but it was claimed by the seller, and believably so, that it would work for this model, because he listed the different models that it would work for, and the other models were close enough that it was real obvious that, yeah, it'll work. But I'm going to have to swap the faceplates over. That's fine. So I ordered it. So that fixes the large laptop. The small laptop was an external DVD drive, and when I turned that computer on and found that there was already a DVD in the drive, so it was one of her DVDs, and it was a factory manufactured DVD, not something that a friend of hers had created. So I thought, well, that's interesting. She apparently is having trouble with this. So I opened up the Windows Explorer. There's the DVD drive, and I clicked on it, and there's the listing of files. I think, oh, great. It's not going to mess up for me. Now what am I going to do? As I'm contemplating that, boom, that screen disappeared. That had the listing for the files on the DVD, and it went back to the computer screen in Windows Explorer that shows the different drives that are available, and the DVD drive was no longer there. So I disconnected the DVD drive, plugged it back in, went back into the same screen, and there it is. And I was on the screen for a while. It was staying there. I found a README file for that DVD and double-clicked to open it, and boom, that whole screen vanished, and it went back to the computer resources screen within Explorer. Not sure what I'm going to call that particular screen. So then I start considering the different USB ports on the computer, because some laptops have different capabilities with different USB ports. I went online and checked the stats for that computer. I looked real close at the side of the computer to see what markings and labels were on those USB ports, and I found indeed that two of the ports, the port on the right side and the left front port, on the left side but the front port, those were both USB 2.0, no, USB 2.0 port on the right side, USB 3.0 on the left side, but they were both 0.5 amps. The USB port on the left side on the back was a super speed port, as well as USB 3 and a power share port. Well, I'm really questioning myself whether I'm saying these things right. I do care about being right. That was the small laptop. There we go. Label turned off. 2 USB connectors on the left. One 2.0. Oh yeah, the power share port was identified as an eSATA / USB combo. That's not right. No, that website told me it had that combo port, but it doesn't, because a combo port is a double height kind of thing. So this, and it also had the sides of the computer wrong. The same model name computer, but it didn't match what was physically on this computer. That's probably because of a different year model. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, because it's a very specific model, the specific part number that I looked up. Anyway, the DVD drive itself, I looked at the label, and it indicated that it required 1.5 amps. Well, these USB ports were 0.5 and 0.5 and 0.9 on the power share port, so none of them were 1.5. I pulled out a external DVD drive of my own and found the label on the bottom of it indicated 1.0 amps was needed. So I tested my drive and it worked fine in all of the ports. Then I went back to use Jana's drive and found that, well, now it works fine in all of the ports. However, I didn't try actually running the program that was on that DVD. So anyway, big long circle out of this. What I wound up doing is today, Jana called me. I had left a voicemail for her yesterday, Saturday. Today, this afternoon, she called me and I gave her my findings. And I explained those things about the different capability of those USB ports on the small laptop. And I asked, were you consistent about where you were plugging it in? Do you know? Did you find that sometimes it would work reliably and then other times it didn't, and maybe it was that you were plugged in a different port? And she couldn't really identify that, but she had something else on her mind. She told me that they had replaced the USB cable for that DVD drive some time back. She thinks it may have been months back. And the old wire had 2 USB connectors to plug into the laptop. So this was a USB cable that with that second a Y connectors is what it's called. It allows additional power to be drawn from the computer to operate a device, any device that needs more than the amount of power that one USB port can provide. As I asked her, do you think this problem has been happening since you replaced that cable? And she said that could be. I just really don't know. And so we concluded I'll just order another cable. So I told her that I had already ordered the replacement drive for the big computer, and I'll order the cable for the small computer. So that resolves both of the DVD problems. And then I told her also that I had discussed with her father, Phil, about in upgrading the big computer to Windows 10. And we talked about how it failed when he originally tried, and I said, well, they fixed a lot of those things, and what I'll do this time is I'll make an image backup of the hard drive so it's even easier for me to restore to it if I need to. But January 14th of 2020, Windows 7 is no longer supported for a security update, so we need to get her up to Windows 10. And so he told me to go ahead and do it, and I informed her, and she's fine with that. She already is comfortable with Windows 10. So I'll be doing that. I think that's probably good for now. Oh my, this has been a long update. And have a great day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.